Man, I can't believe it.
I know.
They are everywhere.
Yep.
The most beautiful women in the world.
You've got to discipline yourself.
I've got to stop staring at them.
You need to renew your mind.
Man, they're all I think about.
With the Word of God.
I don't mean to lust.
Just say no to your flesh.
Maybe I chose the wrong profession. Maybe I shouldn't have been a fashion photographer.
We're back again with Nikolai and Peter, the band Ruscha, and I want to ask you guys, we're talking about your ministry earlier. Tell us a little bit about your message to America and wherever you go. What is the message in your concerts?
Well, we first come out with good rock and roll and blast them. And some of the kids, they really get with it, and others, they want heavy metal. Well, we ain't got no heavy metal, but we got good, clean rock and roll, and it's happening.
Got heavy message.
Heavy message. And our message is that people in America need to hear. You know, here's the thing. You come to this country and you're shocked by the freedom, you're shocked by how blessed America is. And then you see how much people take for granted. I mean, can you imagine? We come to America and we see, we stay in a hotel and there's a Bible laying there, you know. A Bible! In the hotel room. We
took it with us.
Yeah, we thought it was free Bibles, man, alive. Take every one of them we can. Because, Blaine, you know, in the Soviet Union, to get a Bible, we had a family in our church paid $700 for a New Testament about this size. $700.
Well, all we had in our family was handwritten songbooks and Bibles. We had one Bible that
Handwritten.
Completely, word
Dad
word
and
by
Mom
word.
and then about 10 songbooks, which had about 700 songs each.
All of it takes a good part of a year to handwrite a Bible.
Oh, yeah.
It took time.
Life, you know.
But they were so precious to us. This was your life.
Let's talk about commitment for a minute. We're in the program today, and this month, we're talking about disciplining our lives for Christ. In Russia, you know, it's not hard to discipline yourself to be a Christian. It's almost forced upon you. Either you discipline and you are a Christian, or you die, or you get sent to prison, like you said, your friends. But in America, there's so many distractions for today's teenagers. They got, you know, the carnival over here, they got, you know, MTV over here, they've got all these different things, and a lot of Christian young people just are not disciplined to read the Word every day. They're not disciplined to pray every day. How do they get that discipline in their lives with all the distractions that are here in America?
Well, I think a lot of that depends from the leadership of the church, you know. If the leaders are very strong and stay in touch with the kids, you know, and speak their language, you know, whether the kid is comfortable to come up to a leader, youth leader, and say, Paul, man, I've got a problem, you know. And if a leadership is on their level of understanding, you know, and concern and love, then they are much closer, because they have a lot of pressure. In America, we have a lot of pressure. It's not like in the Soviet Union. I mean, communism helps you to love God, even. That's how I got saved, in fact. But teacher, you know, harassing me and telling me, how can you love God, or how can you believe in God? And I even didn't know anything about God at that time, just because of my parents, you know. But here in America, it's different. And I think, you know, discipline would come very easy if you really know Christ from the bottom of your heart, if you really love Him from the bottom of your heart. And that comes natural then. I mean, you're seeking God every day then. You talk to Him while you walk, while you do dishes.
Here's an example of commitment or discipline. For example, when we were still in the Soviet Union, we will never forget how one time the KGB, the secret police, ran into this high school with a little Bible. This madman. He ran into this high school and he threw it on the ground, took a gun out, he pointed it at the Bible, and he said to the little kids, these are 6-year-old kids. Now think about 6-year-old kids. He said, line up. He said, after you line up, I want you to come here, one by one, he said, and I want you to spit at this Bible. And this first little boy that came forward, he looked at the Bible on the ground and he spat on it and ran off. The second boy walked up and spat on it and ran off. The third boy walked up and spat on it and walked off. And then a little girl, 7-year-old girl, she walked up, and instead of spitting at the Bible, she fell to the ground, and with her little hands she started wiping the spit off the Bible. And then she grabbed that Bible in her hands, 7-year-old kid, and she kissed it. And as soon as she kissed the Bible, the policeman just pulled the trigger and shot her right in the head. And that kid just fell on the ground dead. Just for kissing the Bible. That kid could have spat at it. could have stumped at it, could have shoved it away. This little girl knelt and kissed the Word of God, and her brains were blown out just because she loved Christ. Now that is commitment to love God.
It really comes simple, you know, thing like that. If you, I mean, it doesn't come simple. It's a case that just doesn't happen all across the Soviet Union all the time. But if you love Christ, then you can't help but stand up for
that little
Him.
girl did not do that because Mommy said, you need to be a Christian. She did it because she felt Jesus in her heart.
Exactly.
And what
That's
you said
the point.
is right.
Let me conclude with this. Maybe that'd be a good thing for you Americans to hear. Personally, we were in bed asleep at 3 in the morning in Siberia. That's where I was born. In this little house. Nothing compared to American standard of living. Not even close. You couldn't even imagine what it was like. But it was 3 in the morning. This was a regular night for us. There was nothing different, but we were in bed asleep, and the KGB had surrounded our own house because we had meetings in our home all the time, and we loved the Lord. And when they surrounded our house, they found the entrances, windows, doors, whatever they could get through. And exactly at 3 o'clock when we were all asleep, I mean, they banged through those walls and doors and windows. At 3, a bunch of them, KGB men with guns, and some had dogs. They were in the house, just like this, just bang in the house. And they grabbed us kids out of our bed by our necks and just threw us against the walls, hands up, and guns toward our backs. I was about 4.5 years old, Nikolai 6.5. And as we stood there against the wall, they took our pillows that we slept on and just shredded them to pieces. Mattresses cut in half, dumped things out. They took our potatoes, and smashed them to pieces because they thought that we might have hidden pages inside of a potato, pages of the Bible, literature, Christian literature. And we've done that, you know, have a hole in it and stick a page in and covered it up upside down, and they would never find it. But they tore everything up. They broke everything we've had, and they couldn't find anything. But when they searched through the house and found nothing, they took our grandfather. And this is at 3 in the morning when they grabbed him and they dragged him outside, and we all ran outside by the door. It was all torn down, and we were looking out, and it was cold. It was cold, snow all over. And he was standing barefooted in the snow. And KGB men all around him had guns toward his head, and one guy stood behind him, had his mouth shut, and Grandpa couldn't say nothing. And so I remember we stood there and we were weeping, we were crying, and he was standing all by himself, KGB all around him, and tears just running down his cheeks. Just before they took him away, we'll never forget, he just raised his hand and he pointed it to Christ. And as soon as he pointed it to Jesus, one of the KGB just hit him in his back, and he fell over into the car, and boom, they were gone. We saw Grandpa again, but he was dead in a casket. 2 months later, our casket arrived, and he was dead. They froze him to death for just loving Christ. Just froze him to death. We know in our hearts he's not dead. He is alive. Because he had made up his mind, whatever it takes, Christ.